So I would like you to give the last speaker of the day a massive, massive, massive round of applause. Mrs. Hayley Twigg-Wheeler.
Thank you, Jamie. Following that is going to be really tough, but I'm hoping that what I tell you today will help you start your journey, if you haven't started yet, to achieving whatever it is you want to achieve. So I'll tell you a bit about why I do what I do. I was working for Women's Aid, and one of the parents, I was running the Freedom Programme at the time, and one of the women said to me, could you write us a leaflet just to help us out? Oh, fab, I'll set that up now. Thank you. Could you write us a leaflet? So I spent 2 weeks solid, after work, after the children had gone to bed, writing this leaflet. It started as a trifold leaflet and ended up like this. It is a 164-page book. It's called Emotional First Aid, Life After Domestic Abuse, and it changed my life. Because before this point, I didn't think that I was capable of writing a book, training, teaching. At 16, I told my dad that I was going to be a nursery nurse, and he said to me, if you're going to do it for money. If you're going to work with children, make sure you get the big bucks, go and be a teacher. At that age, I couldn't see me being a teacher. I couldn't even see a potential of me going to university, but I'm in university now. I'm doing leadership currently, but I've done my teaching, so I can train and I can work in colleges. Fab, thank you. Right, let's set this up properly. I can tell you my story. Okay, fab. So while I was working in Women's Aid, I'd had an issue with my boss and my friend. And when I left, I'd been bullied and I was an absolute emotional wreck. This was 2011. All of which I didn't deal with very well. But I went from one job and I went into my business, so I set up my business. I was running courses, self-esteem courses and healthy relationship courses for the local family centres, but I was breaking. So by this point, I had collected a number of emotions that I hadn't bothered to cope with or deal with. I was just suppressing them constantly, down and down and down. But this wasn't my first time of suppressing emotions. Over our years, we have a habit as human beings, we like to collect. And negative emotions is something that we like to collect. So after deaths in the family, after losses of pets, after fallings out, after being bullied, after losing friends, after lots of different things happening, my marriage was falling apart. In 2015, I went to see a counsellor. And she, in my final session, not only did she tell me she didn't want to see me again, she told me that I'd put my children at risk because of the relationship I'd had at the time. And my relationship wasn't abusive. It was unhealthy, but it wasn't abusive. But I left that session with no recourse. I couldn't go back to the counsellor. And I also felt like a lousy mother. And I knew, rationally, I knew I'd done my utmost to protect my children again. With all the unhealthy arguments we'd had, I knew I'd done my hardest. But those words from that counsellor, it was like throwing oil down the slippery slope. Because prior to going to see her, I was teetering on the edge of a slippery slope. And I went to see her in the hope that she would help me. But what she did was pour that oil. So in the July of 2015, I'd already been struggling at this point because I'd seen her in January, and that happened in January. By July, it was my 40th birthday, and we were going to France. We drove for 2 days, actually. We stopped in one place, and then we drove down to the actual camp centre that we were staying in for the week. And the holiday had been cancelled. And I cried. I think if I'd had a knife at that point, I think I would have done even worse, because this woman was horrible. My children were like, why are you crying? Why are you crying? And I was like, it's okay, it's okay. But at this point, what I'd neglected to inform myself, let alone anybody else, was that I had depression. I was running courses again. I was building people up. I was working with women, groups of women who were doing better than I was. I would leave my sessions and I would go home. My business was failing. My children, I got to the point where I couldn't even have my children sitting on my lap. The depression became, my body just, there was no personal space. When they wanted to sit in my lap, I couldn't do it. I felt claustrophobic. I felt like everything was closing in on me. And my turning point that year was driving after taking one of the children to sports. It was night, it was dark, and I couldn't see past the window of my van at the time. And I had a fright, because I have really good peripheral vision usually. But the depression hadn't allowed me to have that capacity. It wouldn't allow me to take on anything else. I couldn't take on different images. I couldn't take on all the stuff that was going on around me. I had closed down. My body was starting to close in on me. And that really frightened me. And if it wasn't for the fact I don't like the dark, I would have stopped there and then, but I just needed to get home. And I didn't drive at night for a very long time. I was afraid that if I drove, that I could cause an accident. So I came through 2015. I went to see a coach myself who helped me through some things. And I did a grief course for my son because I have 4 children. And my second son suffers with anxiety. I didn't know this. We'd been struggling with him and we'd been doing a really bad job of helping him understand what he was going through. I thought it was temper tantrums. He was 10 at this point when we discovered that it was anxiety. So I had to help him through his anxiety, more emotions. And all the while, I'm falling out with my husband because he doesn't handle the anxiety very well. I'm falling out with the other children because I don't want them on my lap. I just can't. I haven't got the capacity to take on everything that they want me to take on. So 2015 was a lousy year. It was my worst year ever. But I didn't realize I had depression until 6 weeks ago when I picked up Fern Cotton's book, Happy. If you get a chance to get a copy, it's a really good book to read. I picked it up and read a couple of pages, and it was like somebody had slapped me across the face. Because it was my realization that I had struggled with depression. I didn't have any support. I met Andrew actually in 2015, and I'm sure he'll tell you that there were no signs that I was depressed at that point. My friends didn't know. My mother didn't know. My father didn't know. The children knew there was something wrong because that wasn't the person I was. I wasn't the parent I was. But I didn't know. I'd been ignorant. I'd chosen to pretend I didn't have depression. But I'd gone through 2015. And suddenly, at the end of 2015, I was getting better. I'd done the grief course, did the anxiety things with my son. But 2016, I crawled through on my belly. My business still wasn't doing very well. My parenting was better. I was able to allow them back onto my lap. I had a bit more capacity to deal with. But the issue is, guys, that we collect these emotions. We choose to collect them. We choose to keep suppressing them. Every time you feel anger, every time you feel sadness, find a way to express it, because this is adding to anxiety, it's adding to depression. It adds to everything. Grief. If you have an empty vessel when you are grieving, myself, my auntie passed away Thursday, so we are grieving as a family. We have the funeral tomorrow. But I can deal with it now. I'm not sure I would have dealt with that well in 2015 because I was overloaded. So if at any point in time you are struggling with your emotions, find a way to offload them. Don't let yourself fall into that habit, the comfort zone of keeping them. They feel warm. They feel comfortable. Just like guilt. Guilt feels warm. Guilt feels comfortable. But it is crippling us. So 2015, thankfully, all gone. 2016, got a whole lot better. I did crawl through most of it on my belly. I went to networking, which I hated. I am your typical Cancerian crab. I like to poke my head out. But if I don't like it, I like to come back. But networking forces you to get out there and do what you don't want to do, as Jamie said. Depression and anxiety are very similar. it will want to keep you in that cocoon. But that cocoon is not a good place to be, as I found out in 2015. What do you think is the most important asset in your life? Happiness? Money? Your mother? Okay. Health, children, all great. However, pardon? Positivity. These are all great tools, but the most important asset is you. As every speaker has said today, you. You create the happiness, you can create the sadness, you can create the depression. It's your choice. Happiness for me didn't happen in 2015, but it's on my radar now. I get to choose this year. As you can see there, one of my clients, she came to me angry, frustrated with life, blaming. Who likes to blame? I don't do it so much anymore. Yeah, we're all a bit like, it's his fault, her fault. She now makes better choices, and her life is changing. She's chosen to do that. A lot of my clients will come to me and say, what are you going to do for me then, Hayley? Actually, I'm not going to do anything for you. You're going to do it yourself. I'm going to show you ways you can do it. I'm going to show you ways that you can do things differently. I'm going to show you different things. But you get to choose which of those you apply and how well you do. So what happens, as I said earlier, what happens to you? What's going to happen to your life if you have stress, if you have anxiety, if you have depression, if you have mental health, emotional overload or exhaustion, conflict, bullying, even the grief? What's going to happen? Life sucks. When you have any of these, life sucks. But the one thing I want you to remember from what I've just said now, you have it, you are not it. When we discovered my son had the anxiety, it was horrendous. He's the same size as me, he's only 12 now. I had been treating him like a 2-year-old because I thought it was temper tantrums. And then I had this aha moment and realized that actually it's anxiety. He was struggling with going out to new places. I'd have like 50 questions, same question, 50 times a day. Where are we going? What's going to be there? I don't know, I've never been. His life was lousy, but I helped him understand. We are now, September, October, November, December, January, February, 6 months, just over 6 months anxiety and panic attack free with him. And who did it? He did it himself. So, before I went into my depression, I was the one that's not, I don't like to cry. I've cried a lot this week, and I nearly cried there, actually. I was really pulling myself back there, Jamie. I'm not a massive crier. However, when I was in my depression, I finally understood what it meant to be strong. And crying was part of it. Hugging people is part of it. Asking for help is part of it. But I looked at, there's 3 different emotional stages. And in 2015, I was here. Emotionally disengaged with everybody. And I'm not that kind of person. I like to connect with anybody and everybody. In 2016, I got to here. I was emotionally engaged. Better, not good enough. 2017, I'm here. And what I like to do is bring people with me on that journey. So I'm going to show you how each of these states will impact your life. What do you think this represents? Battery. So do we think that this being full is good? Disrupt you. Yes, in most places you go to, talks you go to, they will tell you that the glass half full and your cup overflows and it's wonderful. Not when it comes to emotions. When you are overloaded with emotions, this is when you get the likes of depression and anxiety. I can now say that the anxiety that my son has is due to me during my pregnancy. I know I couldn't admit that 2 years ago. But I had a stressful pregnancy which resulted in his anxiety. And he was born, literally his words, my body is buzzing all the time. Not anymore, but at the time when it was at its highest and we were understanding it. He was overloaded with emotions. If, for example, for me this week, I am overloaded with emotions, I'm grieving. Add one more emotion to that, what's going to happen? Where's it going to go? Where is it going to go? It's going to overflow. I like to call them, we have a sniper moment. Anybody have the sniper moment? Sniping at your partners, usually, children. Don't drop the socks, pick them up, what are you doing? I don't like the sound of my own voice when I'm like that. Or we have the volcano moments. Oh my gosh, you spilt the milk. Yeah, but I did it yesterday. Today you just shouldn't have done it. And that's the thing. We have to find a way to express them. And when we're at this capacity, you are not expressing them in a good way. So what does happen when we're emotionally disengaged? Low investment in your life and your success. Low functioning. Anybody like their bed? Struggle to get out of bed? I don't know, that's your age. I got a 15-year-old as well. Reactive, we're seeing problems instead of barriers. Problems and barriers instead of solutions. Lack motivation, we've talked about motivation. Disconnected. Not with friends, not with family, not having anything to do with anybody. Minimal productivity, get up, eat, go to bed. Get up, pee, go back to bed. Indifferent towards making life decisions. If you recognize yourself as being here, it is not the be-all and end-all. If you're understanding that this is where you are starting your journey. You are starting to understand what's going on in your life. And the best tool you've got is understanding. Spending that time figuring out who you are. So let's look at the next stage. Do we think this is a good stage? As you can see, we've got 2 levels. What do you think's happening there with the 2 levels? At this stage, sometimes we've dropped some emotions. Maybe we've had a volcano moment. Maybe we've talked to a friend. But sometimes we're heading towards the full again. So what happens in this stage? A lot of people say to me, this is the stage I want to be at, until they read this. This is where you have a reduced investment in life. So you're kind of thinking, I know there's a problem. What am I going to do about it? But, as you can see, lots of buts. High functioning, but inconsistent. So you get up today, I think Jamie said it, buy a book. I'm going to buy a book, it's going to change my life. Pick it up, take it home, read 10 pages, have a nap. Bit of a nana nap. Who likes a nana nap? I like those. Don't have them very often, mind. So you pick the book up, you read it, you put it down, and you stop reading. You're trying, but it's not happening. Competent. You can do it, but your insecurities stopping you. So you think, right, okay, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to see if I can apply to go on the course. So you go, pick up a brochure and a prospectus, and you go home, and you put it on the table. And you move from the table to the drawer. Take it back out to the drawer because you think you might want to do it. But you don't. Because that insecure voice in your head is telling you you can't. But you have a choice. You always have a choice. Productive but easily distracted. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any of them. And if you're not fully invested in doing something, you'll find anything to distract yourself. For me, it's 4 children usually. Mom, can I have this? Mom, can we go to football? Mom, can we go to gym? Can we go to rugby? Identify with others, but not invested in creating healthy relationships. That's the word missing from there, which I'll be adding. Healthy relationships. I've had my share of unhealthy relationships, and they're horrible. So you may be making friends, boyfriends, girlfriends, partners, but they're not healthy because your investment is not in yourself yet. This is mine. I loved my business a lot, but I complained a lot. While I was here, I complained about going to networking, I complained because the business wasn't coming in. Did I pick up a phone? No. Why was the business not coming in? Because I didn't invest in it. If you know you yourself, or you know somebody who complains a lot, potentially they are here. But this isn't the be-all and end-all. We can move from this as well. So we have one lowly little bar. This is emotional empowerment. This is operating at the best that you can possibly be. And what does that mean? Having a high investment in life, making the right choices, going and enjoying, being happy, loving life. I know that's not going to happen 100% of the time, but when it's happening the majority of the time, life is so much better. Focused and driven, you're achieving your dreams, you know what you want, you're going out to get it. You're building those positive relationships. Your friendships are good. Your relationships are good. Whether that's work, whether that's home, whether that's family, wherever. Motivated, inspired, and resilient. Those are 3 words that have cropped up in most of the talks today. When you're motivated, you'll go and get it. When you're inspired, you'll go and get it. When you're resilient, when it doesn't come, you'll get back up and you'll try again. Proactive and productive. You're going to get up, you're going to buy the book, you're going to read the whole book, and then you're going to do something about it. Industrious and creative. I don't know if we're all a bit of creative. I've learned I'm creative. From writing a book, I always say I can't write a book. I couldn't do another one. I did that because I thought it was a leaflet. It was a long leaflet. It was supposed to be 3 pages. It's 160 something. You will empower others. You will help people. You will get more out of helping people than doing what you want to do when you're here. And in order to get there, you have to know who you are. It's no good me telling you, you can do this, you can do that. I know you can do it. You have to know who you are. And what do you need to know about yourself? You need to know your values, your beliefs, and your perceptions. What do you believe in? Are they contradictory? And one of the ones that's how many of you think that it's okay for us to hit somebody else? How many have argued with their brothers or sisters and given them no clout? Yeah. How contradictory is that? I don't do it now. I'm 40 now. My brother and I used to fight drastically. I used to win, obviously, and he's 2 years older than me. But you have to know what you value. What are your values? Do you want to be treated respectfully? You have to act respectfully. You have to self-respect. And you have to invest that time in doing that. Relationships. What are they like? Are they good? Are they bad? Do you want to do something about it? Do you want to change it? It's up to you to change it. You can blame all you like. I have a lot of women who come to me and say, oh, my husband, he's a load. Oh, it's him, he's causing all the problems. And you sit them down and say, okay, tell me about it. And they go, well, when I do this, and I go, bang, there it is. You starting it. You're just not seeing you starting it. What you see is him reacting and responding. And they go, I can see now. They've had their eyes open. Goals are motivators. Know what you want to do. Go and get it. Find out what you need to do to go and get it. This one, how many of us like to talk about emotions? What's the issue with emotions? How scary are they? They're not that scary. They're scary when they mount up. When you keep collecting them and collecting them and collecting them, they cause a lot of problems, and that's when they become scary. Let them go. Let them go. But know what emotions you're carrying. Know what your thoughts are. Know about your behavior. Know what your behavior is doing to other people around you. And that is when you start being accountable for your life. Do you know about your personality and character? Do you know what you want to say to people when you approach people with the way you dress, with the way you look? Are you doing that? Is that the message that you're getting across? But knowing all of this empowers you. You can if you like, it's fine. You continue. It's fine, not a problem. Your personal brand, us as business owners, even when we've gone to work, our organisations have a brand. You'll see all the logos, all the wording, all brands. You need to know your personal brand. This is important to your life as my logo and my brand is to my business. I know I've got perception up there. Know about perception and life experience and what that's doing to you today. My brother, we don't get on. I love him, but I don't really like him. But when we were kids, he used to cheat on women all the time. So he was on the phone one day. I was about 14. He was 16. And he's on the phone to one. And he was he was poking the bear. He was winding me up. So I yanked the phone and I went, do you know he's cheating on you? Put the phone down. He's like, at the time it wasn't mobile phones. It was ringer ones. I don't think you know what they are. But that set my relationship radar off. Cheating is something I cannot stand. That's one of my values. It's one of my relationship values. I will not give anybody another chance when they cheat. But that's my value. And that comes from my life experience of my brother, watching him. He's done it for years. That's why I don't like him. But it is up to you to know who you are. You are important. You are the only important thing in your life. And I say that as a mother of 4 children. If I don't look after myself, who will look after my children to my level? Who will do it as good as me? Nobody. Not my husband, not my mother, not my father. And I love my father, but he don't feed him very well. But if you don't look after yourself, you cannot be the best that you could be. So this is another one of my clients. She was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. But after 6 weeks, she's so funny, because the first week we talk about saying no to people. She stood up and she smacked the desk. She went, right, that's it. She said, I'm going to say no. I went, okay, let's see if she comes back next week, innit? So she came back and she went, 6 friends gone. She'd said no, and they didn't like it. So she went, ta-da. But over the 6 weeks, she took control. She's had anxiety, OCD, and depression for many, many years. She took control. She went home. She applied the principles, which I shall show you now, and her life changed. Her friend circle certainly got smaller, but it was a good thing. These are the principles I apply when I work with people. And these principles, you can use them anywhere. Smart accountability. Be accountable. Know who you are. Know what you want. Know what you got to do to go and get it. Selfdom, my lovely made-up word. I'm getting that in a dictionary at some point. This is about your self-worth, your self-esteem, self-management, self-regulating, all those little self things, self-perception, self-respect. You need to practice. Self-respect will breed respect. If you think you're not being respected, it's because you don't respect yourself. That's not somebody else's fault. That's not somebody else's responsibility to change that. Awareness. Be aware. Aware of how you impact your environment as much as your environment impacts you. Know it. Because we do make mistakes. We do things wrong. But when we walk away like we don't know it, there's no repair in that. When you say, okay, I've really mucked up here. I'm sorry. What can we do to repair it? You have a foundation. But until you know and you become aware and you take accountability, you can't be doing that. Synergy for me is about inside out. It's great having friends and relationships. However, they won't be any better than the relationship you have with yourself. Start within. Go back to that you are important. Self-compassion. How many of us take care of ourselves, really? How many of us spend time investing in, warm bath on their own? I was like a train station last night, 2 dogs, 4 kids, and I'm sitting in the bath, 9 o'clock, get to bed, because that was my time. But how many of you invest that time looking after yourself? Like I said earlier, if you don't look after yourself, no one else is going to do it, and no one else will live your life, or be the parent, or be the grandparent, or be whatever it is you want to be in life as good as you. And my last principle is you. You committing to putting these into practice every day of your life. Being accountable, liking who you are, enjoying who you are, having that awareness that you annoy people just as much as they annoy you. You may even start it. I'm guilty of that. Looking after yourself and committing to it. Thank you very much.